know, just as I do, the profound impact that Western wildfires are having on our communities. I'm very grateful for their leadership and their support. As the impacts of climate change worsen, wildfire seasons are really turning to wildfire years, and we are witnessing increasingly more dangerous and more intense wildfires. Exactly a year ago, we had
recording in progress
simultaneously in my district. Two of these fires was actually the largest fire in the state's history, the Cameron Peak Fire, and the second largest fire, the East Troublesome Fire. Together, they burned nearly 100,000 acres over the course of several months. As wildfires across the West grow larger and last longer, federal firefighters answer the call of duty, leaving behind their lives and families for months at a time, working on average of 16-hour daily shifts, sleeping in the dirt, with incredibly limited time off to reset and reconnect with loved ones. We are pushing our federal firefighting workforce to a breaking point, and it has to change. The legislation that we are unveiling today will overhaul the system as it stands by raising federal firefighter pay, ensuring health care and mental health benefits, increased paid leave and retirement benefits, and ensuring firefighters are provided appropriate lodging while on duty. Specifically, our legislation will reclassify federal wildland firefighters. Federal wildland firefighters are currently classified as forestry technicians or range technicians, although their primary duty is fire suppression. Our bill would create a new wildland firefighter federal classification series so that wildland firefighters are appropriately classified for the dangerous work that they are doing. Our bill would also raise federal wildland firefighter pay with the hourly pay raise that we are proposing, plus changes in work schedules to ensure that our wildland firefighting workforce is compensated portal to portal. We estimate that most federal wildland firefighters would see upwards of a $20,000 annual pay raise and make around $57,000 a year. And that's the floor, not the ceiling. Our bill would also ensure benefits such as health care and mental health benefits for our federal firefighting workforce, as well as retirement, paid leave, housing assistance, and tuition assistance. These changes are not only essential to support our firefighters, our hot shots, and our smoke jumpers, and each of the brave men and women putting their lives on the lines every day to tackle Western wildfires, but it will also increase our federal firefighting workforce capacity so we can get more individuals on the front lines of these fires to protect our communities. Every major wildfire in the U.S. relies on a federal wildfire response and the vital services that their specialized crews provide to protect life and property. When our federal crews are understaffed, our local firefighters are far too often left to pick up the slack as larger and larger wildfires burn through their communities. The bill we're introducing today is named after Tim Hart, a heroic smoke jumper from Cody, Wyoming, who lost his life earlier this year while working on a fire in southern New Mexico. Tim gave the ultimate sacrifice, working to protect Western communities, lives, homes, property, and businesses. It is our hope that this bill will honor his life and his service, along with the service of every other federal firefighter throughout our nation who is putting themselves on the front lines each and every day for the sake of American families and American communities. We're proud that this bill has broad support among the firefighting community, from grassroots wildland firefighters, IAFF, the U.S. Hot Shots Association, National Smoke Jumpers Association, the National Federation of Federal Employees, and countless others. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my good colleague and friend, Congressman Salud Carbajal, who has been a leader on these issues for many years, to share a few words.
Thank you, Representative Neguse, to you and Representative Porter for your leadership and extraordinary work to deliver for our federal firefighters. In my district, the California Central Coast.
Salud, if you just hold on one moment.
I'm sorry? Keep going. All right, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me pretty good? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you great, Salud.
All right, thank you very much. In my district, I was saying the California Central Coast, just this past week, I surveyed the LSL fire with federal and local fire personnel. This fire burned thousands of acres in my district. and is almost at this point fully contained. Over 17,000 fire personnel fought courageously to get this blaze under control, and it burned over 17,000 acres. It was a reminder of the hard job our firefighters perform to keep us safe. And they do this no matter what agency they're from and with great risk. In fact, local, state, and federal firefighters work together on the same fire, doing the same work on this specific fire as they do on so many other fires. Fires don't discriminate. If federal firefighters are fighting the same exact fires as their state and local counterparts, they should receive the same access to compensation and benefits. They should not be treated as second-class firefighters or citizens. Despite this, federal firefighters are being denied access to a benefit that a large majority of municipal firefighters enjoy. For the most firefighters who become disabled by a serious illness like heart or lung disease, we presume that they contracted the illness on the job. Most state and local firefighters have that presumption. It is a fair assumption given the wide array of difficult conditions that our firefighters face and the toxic fumes and chemicals that they oftentimes inhale throughout their careers. However, federal firefighters are currently being denied this right, which prevents them from accessing compensation and retirement benefits that they have no doubt earned. The good news is Congress can right this wrong by passing the Federal Firefighters Fairness Act, which has now been incorporated into the Wildland Firefighter Bill being introduced by Representative Neguse and Porter. The bill would create a presumption that federal firefighters who become disabled by serious diseases contracted the illness on the job, allowing them to access fair and equitable compensation and retirement benefits that their local counterparts already receive. Congress has provided a presumptive disability benefit to other groups. This is not new, like military veterans. I'm a veteran. The presumption is extended in so many ways. The World Trade Center responders and public safety officers who die in the line of duty. And as I said earlier, many state and local firefighters. As wildfires across the country increase in severity and become a year-round problem, the time is now to support our firefighters who work tirelessly to keep us safe. And with that, I'll yield back, Mr. Neguse.
Thank you, Representative Carbajal, again, for your leadership and your partnership. Next, I'd like to turn to Luke Mayfield, a former federal wildland firefighter and vice president of Grassroots Wildland Firefighters, to share more about his experience, as well as then we'll introduce Michelle Hart, whose husband, Tim Hart, the bill is named after, and her incredible activism on this particular issue has just been incredibly inspiring. And then lastly, we'll hear from Andy Vanderhoel with the National Federation of Federal Employees, the NFFE, the union that represents most of the folks represented by this bill. So first we'll go to Luke.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here today and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Luke Mayfield and I'm the current vice president of the Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. I resigned from the United States Forest Service in 2019 after 18 years of service and halfway towards retirement eligibility. The Tim Hart Wildland Firefighter Classification and Pay Parity Act represents a needed and necessary step in the U.S. response to catastrophic wildfire. Tim's Act ensures that we are able to retain and recruit the workforce needed to defend communities, public lands, and critical infrastructure. For too long, federal wildland firefighters have been misclassified, undercompensated, and oftentimes uncared for. They're leaving the workforce for a plannable income, their family's well-being, and because they are burned out. We recognize that we live in an era of fire years. 2 to 3 month fire seasons are a thing of the past. Tim's Act provides the foundation to appropriately and accurately classify, pay, and care for our federal first responders. Tim's Act creates the foundation for an expanded and stable workforce that addresses wildfire. Since the beginning of this decade, Americans have seen how wildfire now represents a persistent threat across the country, no longer confined by geography or time of year. If Congress and the administration wish to build a response to climate-driven wildfires and the threat it is to life and property, then we have to ensure that the administration and Congress have a workforce in place to do the critical work on behalf of the American people. Tim's Act is what right looks like. The cost for suppressing wildfires and managing the land needs to be paid up front. The grassroots wildland firefighter motto is nothing about us without us. This bill has been crafted specifically with the input of firefighters, agency representatives, and firefighter families. We are extremely grateful to all involved in recognizing the need for change as it pertains to federal wildland firefighters and land management. And I can't thank you enough. And with that, I will give it up.
Thank you, Luke, for your service and again for your partnership on this important legislation. Next, we will turn to Michelle Hart. Michelle, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Representative. And thank you all for being here. Almost 5 months ago, my husband, Tim, sustained injuries that resulted in his death after parachuting to a fire in New Mexico. And I know that if he could be here, he would tell you how proud and honored he is to represent the hard work and the very real life or death risk that thousands of firefighters face every day doing their jobs. He represents the sacrifice of being away from family and friends for months on end. He represents the brother and sisterhood that this amazing group of people have with each other. He represents and lived the issues of chronic physical health problems, on-the-job injuries, emotional strain, mental fatigue, financial insecurity, and housing insecurity. Through all of these issues, Tim loved his job and he took enormous pride in what he did. He would be so pleased to see that these are needed reforms are being offered here today to acknowledge the dedication and skills that these men and women have and the sacrifices that they continue to make to protect our public lands, our homes, and our lives. And I just cannot express my gratitude for including him as part of this and his legacy. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Again, our condolences go out to you and your entire family, but we are so grateful for your ability to convert such deep anguish into such incredible activism on behalf of your husband and the many federal wildland firefighters who are saving lives each and every day, just like Tim did. So again, we thank you. And we now will turn to our final speaker, Andy.
Yeah, good afternoon. These are tough ones to follow, and this is my first time speaking in front of a congressman. So my name is Warner Vanderhoel. I go by Andy, and I've been a wildland firefighter for 21 years, and I am the newly elected National Vice President for the Forest Service Council of the National Federation of Federal Employees. So I'm here to voice my support for the Wildland Firefighter Classification and Pay Act, because I've seen the agencies lose some of their best, most talented and experienced firefighters to other employers over the year. And I truly believe it's too many things that are already spoken about. Low wages, poor benefits, lack of support programs such as mental health, housing. If something like this would have been in place earlier, I think the agency would be able to do a better job right now, because we're struggling with low staffing and tremendous turnover. If passed, this bill would immediately boost morale among the ranks and, in my opinion, prevent firefighters from leaving. Each congressional legislation, some kind of legislation is introduced, but it seems like it dies on the table every year. The time, I believe, is now for Congress to step up and actually place or pass what I believe is common sense legislation. So I want to thank you for your time, and I really thank you for your support. in championing this bill, and I'm looking forward to working with you on it.
Well, thank you, Andy, again for your service and for your partnership. With that, I will turn it back over to Sally Tucker on our team to coordinate the questions, and I'll probably turn off my video here. But Sally, if you want to.
Yeah, thanks. Everyone, if you have a question, feel free to use the raise hand function and we can unmute you, or also feel free to drop things in the Q&A portion of the webinar as well. And we'll start with Jimena from Politico. You are unmuted, so feel free to go ahead and ask your question.
Hey there, thank you so much for hosting this afternoon. I definitely appreciate the time. I just want a little bit of clarity to know what the game plan is for getting this across the finish line. As Andy himself just said, we hear these bills come up and they die in committee if they even make it that far. I noticed there wasn't a Senate companion as well. So if the members could just discuss who they're talking to in the Senate to get a Senate companion and what the goal for getting this across the finish line this time around is.
Sure. I'm happy to take that, and then also ask Salud if he'd like to add anything. Number one, I think it's really important that this bill is bipartisan and that it's comprehensive. As you said, there's certainly been efforts in the past to address firefighter pay, but I don't know that there have been efforts as comprehensive as this one, which I think incorporates a number of different proposals that have been championed in the past by people like Representative Carbajal and others. And I think that's what makes this particular package of reforms unique. In addition, it's bipartisan. As I mentioned, Congresswoman Liz Cheney from Wyoming will be our co-lead in the House, and we certainly hope to earn the support of additional Republican members as well. There's every reason for Republicans to support this bill. Many Republican members, just like me, represent Western communities that have experienced the growing intensity and the devastation of wildfires. So we'll certainly be working to gain their support for this measure, because we believe these provisions are essential to fully support our wildland federal firefighting crew. And then finally, with respect to your question regarding a potential bicameral sponsor, which is a good question, we are hoping to find a Senate sponsor for the legislation soon. I believe we will do so. I think you'll find that there will be a number of senators who will lead the companion legislation in the Senate, without getting into details about the conversations we've had thus far, but suffice to say, we were reasonably confident that you'll see the legislation be introduced in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, the House is taking the issue up, and we understand how important it is, and we're always hopeful that the Senate will follow our lead. With that, Representative Carbajal,
Sure.
if you'd like to add.
Thank you, Representative Neguse. I will just add on my bill, which was incorporated into this larger bill being led by Representative Neguse, is the Firefighter Fairness Act. And that has a Senate cameral companion led by Senator Carper. So it's folks like Senator Parker and others who have an interest in bringing equity to these long-standing inequities for federal firefighters, I think will come along soon. I think this is just getting it off the blocks. And as Mr. Neguse and I continue to work on this with others, we're going to bring the support that it needs to get it over the finish line. I know it's a little frustrating at times. My bill has been bipartisan. It's bicameral, and you're right. We haven't been able to get it over the finish line, but we need to do that because we've gone way too long with these inequities, treating our federal firefighters like second-class firefighters. It's ridiculous, to say the least.
And just kind of a quick follow-up real quick, this might be more for Representative Carbajal, but are you in talks with Chairman David Scott in the Agriculture Committee to bring this up to a markup anytime soon? Or what are conversations like looking to get this out of committee and onto the House floor?
Well, I think those conversations are ensuing. I'm going to continue talking to everyone to make sure that we are able to move this forward. Chair Grijalva is really the key person that has more of the oversight and jurisdiction for my bill, and also eventually could be instrumental for this bill as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to that point, I think Salud astutely made, the bill as introduced will have a joint referral to multiple committees, including the Agriculture Committee, of course, because of the Forest Service connection, but also the House Natural Resources Committee, on which I serve as the chairman of the Public Land Subcommittee. And we intend to hold a hearing, a legislative hearing on this bill within the next 3-4 weeks. So we intend to move swiftly, and we're certainly going to be making the case to our colleagues on the Ag Committee and on the Government Oversight and Reform Committee that they should do the same.
Great, and I'm seeing some questions in the chat. Sawyer, I'm not sure if you are on and want to ask, or else I can read your question as well.
Sure, Sally, I can jump in. Several of you mentioned just the difficulties over the last couple of years recruiting and retaining a federal wildland firefighter workforce. I'm just curious if you guys could characterize the scope of that issue and just in terms of how understaffed we kind of are nationally in this area.
Sure, I'm happy to take the lead there, and then welcome any other comments from our other panelists who all have knowledge on this particular issue. But it's a crisis across the country. There's certainly no doubt about that. And any conversation with folks in Colorado, for example, or in other states that are experiencing the longer and longer wildfire seasons, as Representative Carbajal mentioned, can attest to that fact. And so there's no doubt this bill would significantly help with some of the workforce capacity issues. There's a firefighter, she's not on today's call, but she's been very vocal, and we're very grateful for her partnership on this bill. Her name is Kate Dillon. She is a firefighter who we worked with closely on this bill. She served as a wildland firefighter in Colorado during the record-breaking 2020 wildfire season that I described earlier, and she ultimately quit the federal wildland firefighter workforce because of the conditions and the poor pay. And she's not the only one. So I think we have to listen to stories like hers and others and take those stories seriously and ensure that we're adequately supporting our firefighters by passing this legislation, which we know in turn will help increase the workforce capacity that is already stretched way too thin across the country.
Rep. Naguse, if I could just add to that, my staff just reminded me that we're working with Mr. Grijalva because obviously, as Mr. Naguse would stipulate, there's a number of committees that have jurisdiction, but I think the Natural Resource Committee is one that under the chairmanship of Mr. Grijalva has expressed an interest to put together a hearing sooner rather than later, and I think sometime in October.
Great, and if other folks have questions, feel free to raise your hand and we're happy to unmute you.
And I know there are a few technical questions that have been posed in the chat, which we're happy to answer. It probably makes most sense to just give you those answers in writing, which we'll do around hazard pay and the overtime question.
Okay, great. Well, I think that is all the questions for now, and we're right up on the 5 o'clock hour. So Congressman, if you have any closing remarks before we sign off.
Yeah, just a note again of gratitude to Representative Carbajal, to Representative Cheney and Representative Porter, both of whom I know very much wanted to participate. Unfortunately, travel schedules today as they flew into Washington were such that they couldn't participate. But nonetheless, very grateful for their partnership and their leadership. And again, to all of our stakeholders, to Luke, to Andy, and of course to Michelle, we thank you for your partnership and your willingness to assist us as we work to do everything we can to honor Tim's memory and ensure that our federal wildland firefighters ultimately have the resources that they need to do the incredible life-saving work that they are doing each and every day. So with that, we look forward to updating you all soon on the bill's progress, and we thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Thanks so much.